All right, so I guess we're ready. And it looks like we're starting with Liz with Zoom. Oh yeah, Zoom claimed to be encrypted and they weren't. Yeah.
They did, but what was interesting to me about this was that the FTC actually did something about it. That was shocking to me. They actually kind of forced them into an agreement where they have to do stuff like uh, take sensible measures to secure their systems and have people working on the security and report incidents responsibly and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that was sort of a shocker to me. So I was happy to see it. They actually told them that they needed to review all their software and do code reviews and look for OWASP violations. They actually referenced it in the FTC doc. So
Well,
I thought that was kind of surprising and kind of cool.
that is cool. I mean, the first part is not that surprising. I used to work on FTC cases, and they're good about this. If you promise to do something and then you don't do it, then they'll slap you.
Right. I did think it was interesting though, and I never realized this, but it's kind of like the Supreme Court where FTC commissioners can, just like justices on the Supreme Court can write a dissenting opinion, FTC commissioners can write dissenting opinions. And I thought it was sort of interesting that one of their commissioners wrote a dissent that made a whole lot of sense to me, which was basically saying that this is sort of a hand-wavy approach to tell them to just go fix all this stuff without any kind of help or money or meaningful accountability or guidance to make it happen.
Yeah.
Which is not, I mean, he's not wrong. Those are pretty solid points as far as I'm concerned.
I think this is what holds back a whole lot of security legislation, is that in fact it's not 100% clear what you should do or exactly how to do it or exactly tell whether you did it. And this is why our lack of security metrics cripples everything we do largely. Everything we do is really just sort of an art and unclear. Compliance is not that clear, none of this stuff.
Right. I mean, they were pretty explicit on what they needed to do, but they didn't tell them how to do it or give them any kind of put any kind of accountability measures in place to make sure
even telling somebody to fix the OWASP top 10 is not 100% clear like you might think it is. Those contain some judgment calls, like inappropriate parameters and stuff like that. They would like you to say, when you run this official benchmark code, it passes the test. That would be cool. This is like Facebook saying, you tell us to block the offensive content, and then you don't tell us exactly what offensive content is. So how are we supposed to do that?
Yeah, and of course too, you can always miss plenty of stuff in audits. So it's not like it's a fail-safe. Oh, we fulfilled our compliance measures. Now everything's fine.
Yeah.
But I think this is a step in the right direction. We have a long way to go, but I think it is a step in the right direction. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see it.
Yeah, I think it is too. And of course, the law doesn't have to be 100% clear. There's already a law, like if you perform criminal negligence and leave some ridiculous situation and somebody gets hurt, then you're liable. And even though it's not 100% defined, we will make a judgment in court as to whether you should have seen that coming. Yeah. Anyway, that's a good one. And Irvin, old Max, Apple's verification servers? What's the deal?
Yeah, so people were downloading Big Sur.
Oh, I saw this.
Slowed down the OSCP verification because we talked about this a while ago. I think it was Kaitlyn who found it.
Oh, the certificate revocation list, right?
Yeah. Well, whenever you run an application, it actually phones home and then runs. And because people were bringing down Apple with downloading Big Sur and whatnot, that service also took a hit. Yeah.
Just yesterday, I attended a live stream from Ming Chow, and he was saying all day everybody's finding the Apple apps are really slow to launch, and we don't know why.
No, this is why, because the OSCP service was getting hit with so many people downloading and the thing sending so many verifications from everyone. So if you are running Mac, know that your Mac is always phoning home.
Yep.
And there's the proof of it.
That would
The
seem to be
continued proof,
privacy.
because we talked about this before.
Isn't that a privacy issue too?
It is
Is that
ideal
stuff,
for privacy.
is that stuff encrypted properly, I wonder?
I don't think it is.
Even if it's not encrypted properly, it's still a privacy issue, and we're going to get to that in my first article.
And
Actually,
I mean, and to be fair, Microsoft, this happens to Microsoft users as well.
It does? Every app you launch, it phones home?
Pretty much. And it really, it's the OS phoning home and telling you everything and telling Microsoft what you're running.
Well, yeah, we have talked about, I think even before I opened up like Wireshark, I could see it phoning home. But that would be pretty interesting. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that's still happening.
Yeah, I see.
That's still happening, and that affected people who were using Apple yesterday as Big Sur came out. People were downloading.
Yes, that's actually very interesting. And there have been a lot of mysterious things like this. I remember I was on a trip one time and the Apple Maps suddenly quit working and only Google Maps would work. Anyway, we've come a long way from where the software is running on your machine and all that matters is whether your machine works.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And Kaitlyn, Privacy Badger.
yeah. So Privacy Badger is a plugin that you can get for your web browser, and it's supposed to protect you against people who put cookies on websites to track you. It's put out by the EFF. And as it turns out, there were some security holes in Privacy Badger from the EFF. Now, I do want to point out that the EFF did the exact right thing. As soon as they found out, they patched the code. They put out this article explaining the situation, and they went into full detail of how the exploit worked. So the EFF was really good. I mean, I've said this a lot before, but the way a company handles a security issue is much more important than whether or not the company actually has a security issue. In this case, the EFF did a great job. And the problem is that the Privacy Badger plugin had a way of learning about cookies. Essentially, it would phone home and say, hey, this cookie looks suspicious. What do you think? And grab data and try to protect other users. And the problem is that the way it was working is that someone could send cookies to your web browser and then set up sort of a server to detect the data coming back, and then use sort of a side channel attack to figure out the main cookie that you have for that site.
Right, that makes sense. So that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, so it was called local learning. So they turned that off, but you can still turn it on if you want. I mean, it's not entirely a security hole, but it is enough that Google contacted the EFF and said, hey, you need to fix this. So.
Good, that's cool. And by the way, I think you could also say that about humans. It's more fair to judge them on whether they improve when they're caught doing a bad thing than whether they never did a bad thing.
Well, the thing is, I don't even think the EFF did a bad thing. That's the thing. You can be really good at what you do.
Yeah.
And still have security holes. You make mistakes. People are human.
Yeah, that's right. Well, also, you can't anticipate everything.
You can't anticipate everything. Security is hard. And so, you just can't, you can never expect to be 100% secure. And if you are 100% secure, if you say you're 100% secure, prepare to get pwned really quickly.
Right. And the other thing is, there's a gradual improvement of the human race. So even if you're doing everything right, in a couple of years, they find something new and your whole generation of stuff is broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the EFF is great. I would still advise having Privacy Badger installed, but it is funny or at least interesting to note that a lot of these security tools that we put on our machine are actually opening up new security holes themselves.
Yeah, that's also true of antivirus, of course. It opens up holes. Yeah. All right. And so this one just came out again. The original thing here was exposed like a year or two ago, but they just had more information about it. But this sort of caught my attention. The CIA is famously a short-term thinker. They will do things that always have blowback later. And here's another one. I'm amazed the Swiss agreed to this. The Swiss sold encryption software, and there was a secret backdoor in it for decades that was leaking all the information to the government. And it's like you would think, especially, I would think the Swiss would think about their reputation. What's going to happen when this comes out? Nobody will trust us ever again. But they don't think that way. It reminds me of, I think it was Portugal. They had a problem with their national debt. So they just impounded 20% of everybody's bank balance from inside their bank account. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can't do that. What? Who would ever put money in your banks again if you do something like that? That's insane. But anyway, they held this company, Crypto AG, just sold stuff for decades, and they had a secret backdoor key for it all. And it was the number one way that many governments, including the US government and the Swiss government, got all this information about people. They would buy this stuff. And now we know the NSA did the same thing to Cisco. That was part of the Snowden thing. They showed the NSA guys opening up Cisco boxes, putting secret chips in the Cisco equipment and shipping it to companies. So now there's an extra copy of all your stuff going back to the NSA. And this is that seems to be the defining feature of all the. It also reminds me when they put spies in with the medical teams trying to distribute vaccines in Pakistan, and then all the rural areas said, "Oh, don't take that vaccine. That's American spies poisoning us." And then they had to apologize, saying, "Oh, in retrospect, we probably shouldn't have had American spies in the vaccine team, because the problem is there were spies in the vaccine team." Anyway, but that's what they did.
That's crazy.
Well, they only think short term. They just think, we want to win today's battle, so do this dirty trick to win today's battle, and tomorrow will be somebody else's problem. Like, let's arm bin Laden so he kill the other guys we don't like. And yeah, there'll come a time when we wish bin Laden wasn't so dangerous, but we'll deal with that later. Anyway, and so I hate this headline. I already complained about this headline. So Microsoft wants you to stop using two-factor authentication. Is that really what they want?
No, they want you to stop using phone-based MFA.
Go back to using 1FA, huh?
No, they don't want you to quit using MFA entirely. They just want you to stop using phone-based MFA, which is actually a solid recommendation. In fact, I'm in a group right now with a research group for some of my grad school studies with someone who's doing his research project on this right now. Because it's one of the least secure implementations of 2FA. So, there are a lot better solutions like using a single sign-on solution. The problems with using phone-based MFA are that you're vulnerable to a lot of attacks like SIM swapping attacks, and to a lesser extent, issues where nefarious hackers are out there intercepting your communications with stingrays or SDR attacks and stuff like that. So they don't want you to stop using MFA. They just want you to stop using phones for it. They even said that using MFA actually blocked like 99.9% of automated attacks against those Microsoft accounts.
Yeah.
But it's better to use other solutions versus a phone.
And Google said when they got those UB keys for everybody, all phishing stopped.
Yeah.
So those USB things, those are considered high quality MFA.
Yes, absolutely. Hardware dongles, and they even said at the end of this article, that's your best bet. So.
Yep. Oh, good. And then ColdFire. This does sound pretty awesome.
This was a fun find. A Go language malware development framework, and it tends to work on Windows and Linux.
Nice.
Import some libraries and go make some malware.
I totally want to do this. I want to write some crypto malware or something and then play with it. This does seem awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't made any yet. Have you?
I have not yet. I've been working in assembly, but I saw this and had that same idea of when I'm done with this, I might just go back to Go and make some stuff because this is pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, especially for example, my malware analysis class, the textbook malware is too out of date. So I've in fact been writing fresh malware in Visual Studio, but this might be the cooler way to make fresh malware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't beat that.
The only issue I can see with that is that library is going to get picked up pretty quick by antivirus scanners, at least the default one. So you might have some issues distributing it.
Well, sure, but that's why even the old stuff is detected by antivirus. So you have to distribute it as a password protected zip file. And then, of course, your machine you're analyzing it on has to turn off the antivirus, but that would be acceptable. In fact, I would hope that the virus scanners will detect malware made with that library, because obviously the bad guys can totally make their malware easier too with it.
Right. But for learning, I think it would be great.
Yeah, being able to write custom malware is awesome for like CTFs and stuff. Yeah, and then we got PiPi.
Yeah,
What
so
is
PiPi,
PiPi? I've used it and I don't really understand it.
so that's kind of where your pip packages come from
All of them?
when you do pip install. Yep.
Oh,
And so it's the main way people install libraries for Python, which you do a lot. Whenever you write a Python script, you're like, oh, it doesn't do this thing that I need it to do. So I'm going to type, pip install library. And you just do that kind of automatically. And I'm always worried because this is pretty much the same thing as just installing a new piece of software. And it's so easy to just throw malware in there, right? And I would argue it's probably easier to put malware in, in the pip repositories than it is to put malware in the Google Play Store, and that's easy.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So this is so someone downloaded a bunch of Python libraries and started going through them, and tried to find things that look kind of malicious, looking particularly at syslogs. And they found a few packages. They found I am malicious, which you can totally just do pip install I am malicious. Run that, and it's obviously just a proof of concept. There's also malicious package, pip install malicious package. That's awesome. And then there's also the other thing that this person found was something called easy IO control. And what this does, I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to do, but it's supposed to fix IO operations or something, make it easier. But there's a bunch of hidden commands throughout the code to run shell scripts and test stuff out and just get a payload ready when they need to deploy, malware. So definitely that stuff's out there.
This looks
is
like
awesome.
Yeah, this looks like a fun project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's as common as Android just bad code. I think if something's obviously malicious, it's going to get picked up eventually, especially if it gets popular. But if you try to run if you try to download and install a Python library that's not very popular, I would definitely be suspect of that. Totally sus, as Irvin would say.
Yeah, great.
Wow, I am malicious. How did you get a pip packet named after you, Kaitlyn?
I swear I was not involved in that at all.
She denies everything. So, so I thought this is bloody awesome. So Desantis wants to be like the guy in the Philippines. He's just going to make it legal to just kill people. So he wants citizens to just be allowed to shoot people they see looting, like your neighbor's house, and just be able to run over people if they're protesting in the street, blocking traffic, and not get prosecuted. So this is the guy in the Philippines whose name escapes me a minute did this. He said, Duterte or something. He said, you can just shoot drug dealers. So now you can just shoot anybody and say, well, he was a drug dealer. And so
what could go wrong?
I remember 20 years ago, I came home and I forgot my keys. I rang the doorbell and my roommate was listening to his ham radio and couldn't hear me. So I climbed over the fence and climbed in the window. And I was thinking, boy, I hope a cop doesn't go by right now.
Right. That's exactly what I was thinking when you said that, because I was like, I've had to break into my own place before.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it looked, again, totally sus.
I know. I mean, so anyway, this guy is pretty fantastic. His other thing is, doing absolutely nothing about the virus and telling people everything's fine. He's really a hero down there in Florida.
Wow.
Plus, half the time I'm wearing all black with the black hoodie, so I look like a burglar.
Yep. I know.
So here's the thing. America has a terrorist problem. Our media sort of frames terrorism as being a sort of foreign, a foreign problem, but we really do have terrorists here, and I don't want to say that it's entirely all on these kind of right-wing Proud Boy people, because it's not. There's terrorists on the left and there's terrorists on the right. However, there are more terrorists, on the right.
Absolutely. That's what
And
the FBI says.
yeah, and so, you know,
And they have a lot of guns.
they have a lot of guns, and I really worry that statements like this, you know, political posturing like this, emboldens, you know, violent groups.
Yes, and then there's this myth that if I just carry a gun everywhere, now I'll be safe. If anything bad happens, I'll just shoot people like Clint Eastwood. And that is not what typically happens if you start carrying a gun everywhere.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I remember I had a student that said, "You need to get a gun. How can you live without a gun?" And I'm thinking, you know, I'm pretty damn old. And the number of times I've said, "Boy, I wish I had a gun," is still zero, you know? I've never had any problem where I said, "If I only had a gun, I could fix this problem." Not even once. But anyway, so that's Florida. And now we got ransomware guys taking out ads.
Yeah, I just found this amusing. There's
Yeah.
actually much more important news in the world right now that I probably should have chosen instead for my last article, but this just cracked me up. I laughed really hard out loud when I read it initially, just because you know, it's part of the ongoing saga of ransomware gangs that are just getting super bold to the point that they're just completely out in the open. And essentially what they did was they hit this large Italian beverage conglomerate and
Oh, they used Krebs' account.
no, they didn't use Krebs' account. They used Krebs wrote about it. That's the other article. So they used a DJ in Chicago. They broke into his account, which even had 2FA implemented on the account, but they were still able to get in. They broke into his entertainment business account and then used that to post ads demanding demanding that the victim company pay up.
And they're targeted ads, so only those people see it. Is that the idea?
They were not, so only those people saw it. They were public facing, so other people did see it, but they did target specific employees of the company.
So they humiliate you until you pay up.
Yes. Yeah.
Did they get paid?
That was unclear. As far as we could tell, I could tell from what I read, no.
Yep. Yeah, well, it does make sense. That's why we really need better ransomware solutions. There was one we had, I think, last week where they said these are the 10 steps to stop ransomware, and I haven't written a project yet, but we really need to give students homework of doing that stuff so they get practice in stopping ransomware.
Yeah.
All right, and right, the MacBook Air. Irvin had one of these, and I added a couple more. Everybody's real excited about the new Mac, and it turns out to have some disturbing problems. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been complaining about this, about how there's just not enough information. That keynote was just one big marketing thing.
Mm-hmm.
Their graphs were not useful at all. They talked about being faster than the fastest fastest Windows system, but which one? And then there's finally some fine print here and there that helps you see, oh, it's not really a high-end, like an i5 with Intel UHD graphics. Yeah, that's not as strong. But anyways, adding on to the madness of this chip being, I feel, overblown, is things like you can't run any VMs.
Yeah.
Docker doesn't work.
Right.
There's a bunch of homebrew stuff that doesn't work right now. It's definitely not a smooth transition if you're thinking of purchasing or already purchased this thing and think you're going to be able to, right off the bat, be able to use it like any other Mac.
That's what I thought. I mean, I was going to get one, and after I learned all this stuff, I said, well, there's no point. I wouldn't really be able to use it. I think we need to wait for the next generation when they hopefully fix all this.
Yeah,
nonsense.
the insane thing is that I have a 2015-ish MacBook Pro that actually has slightly better specs. I mean, it's just kind of insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was the top of the line, most spec'd out Pro 5 years ago, but still.
Yeah, and all of these are getting the same thing. They can only get up to 16 gigs of RAM. It's only the M1. There's no real modifications other than storage.
Yeah, so I guess we need to wait for the next generation.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there any reason anybody would get it? Is there something awesome it does?
Other than jumping on board with like Big Sur, I don't really
I
see
think you can
something.
put Big Sur on other things, can't you? I don't know.
Yeah, you can, but I don't necessarily see a benefit other than trying to run things on ARM.
Well, I think the Apple relies a lot on fanboys that just have to have the latest one. Like people always get a new car. Some people just get a thrill out of being on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, they can
Definitely not us. Like
not me.
Keith
Yeah.
said, we're not. That's not our. We're not the target audience.
Yeah. I guess not. I've got a lot of work to do. I need the old stuff to keep working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. When I do actual work, I rely on the fact that my Mac has an Intel CPU because I need to develop cross-platform software for like Windows and Mac OS. I
Yeah.
do that all on one machine, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But with this new ARM stuff, it's like, oh, well, now I need to have two machines. It's like that's not okay.
Yeah. They need to make it so it can do both, which is what I thought they were going to do with that Rosetta Stone stuff, but they didn't really do it right.
Correct. The Rosetta can't do virtualization, which knocked out us. I did see that Parallels is not able to work yet, or
Man.
VirtualBox or VMware. No one has a thing for that platform.
I mean, this takes us all the way back to the Stone Ages where I have like only one OS. Like, what planet are they on? I mean, that was cool in like 1990, but only one OS? I can't go through the day with only one OS.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the days when compatibility between Mac OS and PCs were just such a big obstacle for everyone.
Yeah.
The different, hard drive partitions, not being able to like swap things around. And finally we came up with these standards. And then finally Apple started getting on the bandwagon with standards and adding all the USB-C ports to their laptops instead of the stuff. And I was like, yes, this is definitely the direction we need to go. And then suddenly Apple's like, no, I think not.
Yeah, well, that's, of course, Apple is like the 900-pound gorilla. I mean, they say, we'll, like the iPhone, we're just taking flash off of it, and you guys will just get used to not having flash anymore. And that's totally what happened. And the amazing thing is the RIAA. Everybody pirated music because you couldn't buy music legally at all because they would fight about which walled garden and how much it would cost. And Steve Jobs said, we'll do it, but you have to give me every song in the world for 99 cents. And there's such a big market, they did it. So, I mean, they can just drag the whole world with them to some extent.
They can, but I mean, there's like, as Irvin pointed out, the benefits are just not there. I mean, supposedly the ARM is going to be more power efficient, but that's about it.
Yeah, well,
you can't even run.
I begin to wonder if this is what happens now that Steve Jobs is gone. Now you've got nobody in charge to like stop them from making major blunders like this.
Maybe.
I mean, this honestly seems kind of like a Steve Jobs moves, where it's like, what are you thinking? Because everyone thinks Steve Jobs was this genius who knew exactly what he was doing. But the truth of the matter is that like Steve Jobs was totally opposed to having like the App Store on the iPhone and all this stuff. And Steve Jobs was the one who wanted that skeuomorphic designed on everything that looked ugly. I mean, he wasn't perfect himself.
No. I mean, and before that, he lost the whole company with the Lisa. So yeah, but he's sort of like a Tesla, that Elon Musk figure that will boldly charge ahead, ignoring all the complaints.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, Apple still has its fans, and as mentioned already, we're not the target audience. The target audience.
I think I am. I buy a lot of Macs, but I'm probably not the average target audience, though.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you're the one they're trying to target these new Macs to. They're trying to target them towards normal businesses and people that want to run Word documents and do maybe web development, and just have a battery that lasts a little bit longer. I mean, that's fine.
Well, I'd care about the battery if I was able to leave my house. I might care about the battery, but not right now. Anyway. Yeah. So we got Enum Linux. Oh, Enum 4, yeah.
Yeah, Enum for Linux. So Enum for Linux is probably one of the most important tools if you're scanning Windows domains. And there just was sort of a new version that came out, a rewrite called Enum for Linux NG. And so I just wanted to signal boost it because we should be transitioning to this now, and it looks good.
This does SMB integration, right?
Yeah, it does SMB. If you're attacking a
RPC.
Yeah. Does RPC any sort of
Right.
Windows? If you're attacking a Windows box,
Oh,
Enum for Linux is one of the first tools you should be using.
apparently it does all the RPC feed.
Whoa.
Yeah, it
That's
does.
good.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's like I said, Enum for Linux is one of the main tools for Windows domain hacking, and now there's sort of a new version out. So
Yeah.
go, people, have fun.
Yeah, more
Hack the
powerful than I
planets.
thought. Yeah, good.
That's awesome.
And this one here I thought is interesting. Because of Brexit, it is going to turn out that it is not yet clear that it is legal to transmit data from the UK to the EU anymore. And Brexit is such a disaster. They haven't made the agreement between Europe and the UK. So they're talking about how one financial business like 3 years ago opened another branch in like an EU nation so they could continue to business, and other people do not know what the compliance rules are, what would have to happen, or how they can do it. And it reminds me of the other one I know is incredibly fragile. Is the EU to the United States data transfer is technically illegal and has been for about 8 years because we totally don't enforce enough privacy rules over here. So they passed a temporary thing to make it go for 3 years, and then they passed another temporary thing to make it go for 3 years, which is completely a fraud. It says American companies promise to make a special case of European data and not treat it and just throw it around like a drunken sailor like we do American data, which they totally don't do. But they signed a document pretending to promise that. And there's these temporary stopgap things. Technically, if you're a European business, you can't use Google, Yahoo, or any American service, except for this one fragile plank that it's already done. Same thing's going to happen with Brexit. So anyway, it's an interesting issue. I know we're facing one in California, but the California privacy law coming on, these privacy laws have a lot of rippling effects. And especially, I think, in the modern world, your company has to make a risk-based decision. Is anybody really going to care if we just ignore this law? And how long can we get away with it and stuff? Anyway, so we'll see what comes of that. Everyone's pretty much freaking out about Brexit. Anyway, anything else?
No.
Those are good stories today.
Yeah. All right, I'll stop this recording.